Danny had no phone, so there was no way to reach him other than to drive out to his trailer. He lived deep in the woods on the outskirts of my father's RV park, about 10 miles from New Bern. As I turned onto the long, narrow driveway leading into Mac's RV park, the woods hugged my car so tightly I wondered how motorhomes ever made it down the road. I reached the lane that ran parallel to the creek. The park was down the gravel lane to the right, but I turned left onto a rutted dirt road that would take me to Danny's trailer. I slowed way down, my teeth clacking against each other as my car bounced over the choppy peaks and valleys of the packed earth. I came to the turnoff that led into the woods and made another left. The road here was barely more than a hiking trail. Someone would have to be looking for it to see it, and that was the way Danny liked it. Branches slapped against my windshield as I drove over rocks and tree roots. The few hundred feet to get to Danny's trailer always felt like an eternity on this road. I finally spotted a glint of metal through the trees ahead, and I steeled myself for what lay ahead. Which Danny would I meet today? The affectionate big brother whose smile masked his sadness? Or the angry, bitter man who could scare me away with his fury? Either way, I hated that I was a counselor, but I couldn't seem to help my own brother. Driving forward again, I turned into the clearing. The trees formed an emerald green cavern around the pine needle-covered earth, and between Danny's small, ancient Airstream, his old Subaru, and the hammock strung between two of the towering longleaf pines, there was barely enough room for me to park. I brought him a couple of bags of groceries, and I looped them over my wrist as I got out of the car and walked toward the trailer. Danny opened the door as I got closer. "Hey, Danny." I smiled brightly. "Hey," he said. "I wondered when you'd show up." His expression was flat and hard to read, but there was a spark in his eyes that comforted me. He'd always been a good-looking guy, and he still was. His messy collar-length hair a darker blonde than it had been when we were kids, and his pale blue eyes vivid against his tan skin. He was too thin, his face all sharp angles and flat planes. I was glad, though, to see that his short beard was neatly trimmed. During the worst times, he let it grow long and scraggly. I'd come to see his beard as an indicator of how he was doing. "I stopped by right after Daddy died," I said, "but I couldn't find you." "And that surprised you?" Okay, I thought. The angry Danny today. I held up the bags. "I brought you some food and cigarettes." I brought some fruit for him, peaches and a melon and a pint of strawberries, but one whole bag was filled with the boxed macaroni and cheese he loved along with the Marlboros. I long ago gave up trying to make my brother into a healthy eater. Making him happy was more important to me. I'd stopped short at buying him booze. I was sure he had plenty of that already. I reached up to hand him the bags and he took them from me, stepping back to let me in. As always, I yearned to reach out and hug him as I climbed into the trailer. But sometime over the years, our hugging had stopped. He was 4 years older than me, and until I was 10 or 11, I would have called him my best friend. That's when adolescence seemed to take hold of him and refused to let go. "We need to talk," I said. "Do we have to?" he asked in a way that told me he knew perfectly well we had plenty to talk about. Yes, we have to. It had been months since I'd been in his trailer, and I'd forgotten how it listed to one side, giving me vertigo as I walked into the tiny space. His narrow bed was at one end, the built-in table and benches at the other, and they were no more than 5 steps apart. I knew he liked the confined space. He once told me he felt safe, contained that way. He was not a complete hermit, though. More than once I'd come to the trailer to find signs that a woman had been there. Lipstick on a coffee cup or a romance novel on the counter. You couldn't look like my brother without turning heads. My girlfriends used to drool over him when we were teenagers. I liked knowing he occasionally had company out here. The window air conditioner cranked out a weak flow of air as I began putting away the groceries. I'd never really understood how he had power out here at all, but he'd somehow managed to rig up a generator that kept him